What is intuition?
Intuition is simply a mode of awareness. It's a way that we receive and interpret information. Now, what does that mean? Well, right now you're receiving the sound waves I'm producing as I speak via your speakers, and you're interpreting them by using your brain to turn them into language which you get meaning from. Now, we have two modes of awareness, and they're quite different. And I'm going to go into each of them so that we can understand them more deeply. See, for most people, the majority of the time, if not all the time, we're in a state of perception. This is our primary mode of awareness. So we're receiving and interpreting the world around us, and people think it's reality. Because why wouldn't you? It's your experience, and it certainly feels very real to you. But perception of what is different to what actually is. It's not truly reality. It's only your version of it. See, when external events and information arrives to our awareness, our mind will automatically distort, generalize, and delete information. And the way it does this will be based on what it knows as time and space, language, past memories, our traits, past decisions, attitudes, values, and beliefs. So information is filtered in all of those ways before we can actually make an internal representation of what is happening. And our internal representation or perception of what is affects our state, and our state affects our physiology. And it feeds back the other way too. Our physiology affects our state, which in turn affects our internal representation. So perception is subjective. Perception takes what is real and turns it into someone's personal reality. See, two people can go through the same event and yet perceive it differently. They take a different meaning from it. They interpret it differently. So we really perceive through our thoughts and feelings. And this is why it feels like reality, because it produces a very real physical response within us. Something happens and we have thoughts about it, and we have feelings about it. And that's our experience of reality. And we assume them to be true. But thoughts and feelings are actually determined by our subconscious beliefs. For example, there's the story of two brothers that were raised by an alcoholic father. Now, one of those boys grew up to be an alcoholic, just couldn't break the pattern. The other grew up and never drank a day in his life. Now, when asked why, what happened to make you this way, they both gave the exact same answer. Well, I grew up with my dad. I had to watch him. See, these two boys grew up watching the same dad, exhibiting the same behavior, and they each took something different from it. They perceived life differently. They gave different meaning to things and had different beliefs. And so they ended up living in quite different realities. To give another example, if you have a belief that the ocean is a dangerous place, it's unpredictable, it's scary, it takes people's lives, maybe it's out to get you, then when you go to the beach and look at the waves, you're going to feel tense, feel frightened, maybe threatened, maybe start thinking of all the lives that it's taken, how the world's a dangerous place. And you'll be noticing how powerful and forceful the waves are. And you're probably not going to have a great time. It's going to be uncomfortable and unpleasant. Yet for someone else who has great memories of the water, who believes the ocean is just incredible, it's beautiful, refreshing, cleansing, energizing, and the waves are fun as hell, that person is going to have a completely different experience when they arrive to the beach. It'll fill them with joy and excitement, maybe gratitude for being there, thoughts of how much fun they're going to have, and how the world's such a wonderful place. And it'll be a really good, pleasant experience. Now, both of those people are in the same place, looking at the same thing, but they're each having a very different experience. They're living a very different reality. One's living in a dangerous world, one's living in a wonderful world. What's real for one is just not there for the other. So who's right? What's real? The ocean and the world, with anyone who has or hasn't died in the water, is exactly the same in both situations. It's the same moment in time, but the interpretation is extremely different. See, our thoughts and our feelings are dependent on our underlying assumptions in any moment. So they're not a reflection of actual reality. They communicate a distorted version of it. And it is based on the lens through which our subconscious is operating. And that was quite a basic example, but you can imagine how this might play out when you're interacting with other people, where each person has their own set of beliefs and assumptions and past experiences. So we perceive things to be good or bad, right or wrong, allowed or not allowed. But why? Who actually defined what is good or bad? Right or wrong according to who? Is the ocean actually trying to kill people? Is it actually intending to give you a good time? We really live in this state of perception. And I love how William Whitecloud puts it. We live in our perception just like a fish lives in water. And the fish has no idea it's in water until it's taken out. Now, what's really interesting is that we literally edit what our senses are detecting. Our minds are said to be processing in total 400 billion bits of information every second. But we're only self-consciously aware of 2,000 bits. Now, 2,000 bits out of 400 billion bits is not very much. And which 2,000 are we choosing? Why those? What defined what we should be aware of or shouldn't be? See, the things that we do tend to notice only tend to be the things that align with our level of consciousness, that are equal to the beliefs that we have about the world and our place in it, and that are relevant to our well-being and survival. The rest gets filtered out. It's either ignored or it doesn't even register. So you can see how we have unconscious or subconscious biases built in from previous experiences that determine what we know, but we actually just assume stuff. And because it would be threatening for the mind to not know or to be wrong about how the world is, it selects information that conforms with what we already know. It chooses to pay attention to things that confirm what we already believe. Because when it doesn't, it scares us, right? Now, I'm not saying perception is bad. It can be very useful. It's pretty important when we come to a road and see a car that we already know what it is. Our mind already has assumptions about it, and it looks at past experiences to tell us that that thing moves pretty quick. And we don't want to get in its way because it's solid and we will feel it. So it's a shortcut to getting useful information. But those shortcuts, which are assumptions, aren't always accurate. So you can assume that all salespeople are greedy and deceiving and you can't trust them because that's been your experience in the past. But then when you come to a person that wants to sell you something because they know that it could really help you and they actually have your best interests at heart, well, then your assumptions and distorted perception might have you thinking, Here's yet another sleazy salesperson trying to trick me into giving them my hard-earned money. And you might have a feeling of being guarded and irritable. And you might not accept something that could have actually changed your life for the better. So how can we trust our thoughts and feelings when we're in a state of perception? It's hugely limiting to stay only in our perception, because it's all based on previous experiences. And something to consider: how can you expect to create anything different in your future if you're always reacting to the past? So now we've covered perception, let's talk about the alternative, intuition. And as I begin, I want to first bust some myths. Firstly, intuition is not something that's only for spiritual people or hippies. Secondly, intuition is not something that some people are gifted with and others aren't. We all have it. We just don't always know that we do. We often haven't developed it, and unfortunately, we often don't trust it. Thirdly, intuition does not come in just one form. There are three major intelligence systems that house intuitive power: the brain, the gut, and the heart. And all three communication channels are equally powerful. And there are three main intuitive styles that are body-based intuition, feeling-based intuition, and mentally-based intuition. 4, intuition doesn't speak to us in the way that we're used to understanding information. It's usually very subtle, and you must decipher it. It doesn't usually come in the form of words, although it can for some. See, each person will actually receive it in their own unique way. And it communicates in symbols. And a symbol can be anything. It can be a word, or an image, or a feeling, or a smell, something audible, or just a knowingness. And number 5, there are actually 9 different ways in which people use intuition, which were developed as a survival pattern when we were young. So it was developed as a way to survive or to navigate and understand this world. And depending on your self-conscious identity or ego fixation, or Enneagram type, for those of you who know what that is, you'll excel in at least one of these 9 ways. So you do have an intuitive superpower, even if you haven't realized it yet. So to get more into what it really is, intuition can be said to be what the mind apprehends before rationalizing. It's information as is, without the mind filtering it. And intuition is actually our first intelligence. And there's actually a lot of science behind it. For example, proving that your heart knows before your head. And if you want to read all about that, then a great resource is the Heart Math Institute. I'll put links in the description. And presentiment research shows that we can actually tell the future. And you know, we're known to have gut feelings about an event before it occurs. Now, intuition is governed by the superconscious mind, which is a field that connects everything. See, everything is connected. We're actually more connected than most of us ever imagine. And if you want to learn more about this field, then I've actually already shot a video on that, and I'll put the link in the description. Now, the superconscious exists beyond time and space, and it speaks to us as the voice of the higher mind, i.e. our higher awareness or higher dimensional awareness, which gives us intuitive information. And because it's not bound by the classical limits of time and space, we are able to receive insights about the future via this superconscious mind, i.e. intuition, or also known as psychic abilities. Now, when we're truly in this awareness, we are observing and receiving the truth, unskewed by our belief systems. It's observing what is rather than a perception of what is. It's the unbiased truth without editing it. And it's informed by our superconscious awareness, and it bypasses our subconscious belief system and our self-conscious definitions and identity. Now, to reach this level of mind, we must be outside of our thoughts and feelings, in a state of pure presence, or what we call innocence, with no expectations, no judgments, no fears, and no hopes. We must leave behind all that we know or think we know in order for us not to be editing the information. And it's in this place that we can ask questions or define what we want information about. And then we simply receive in the ways which I've mentioned before, in our own style and in symbols. Because symbols carry a lot of information in a small package. For example, we all know that saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So whatever information you get, whether a feeling, an image, a song, a word, a metaphor, you can unpack it a lot. You can pull out a lot of information from even the most subtle symbol, because the information that you're getting is profound. It's your truth. So I hope you agree that intuition is pretty awesome. And perhaps you're excited to get more in tune with your own communication channels, because the information's right there. You just have to open your awareness to it. Now, I want to give a huge thanks to my teachers, the real masters of this work, especially Chris Duncan and William Whitecloud. And thank you to you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed it. Now I wish you love, light, and freedom, and I'll see you soon.